You are standing in a quiet garden. It is early morning, and the air is still, the kind of stillness that carries birdsong across great distances, the kind that holds time in suspension. A soft breeze tickles the back of your hand, but you didn't see where it came from. The leaves rustle, not urgently, just enough to stir your awareness. You watch as a butterfly drifts into view. Its wings like pieces of parchment folded in rhythm with the wind. You watch it land on a violet bloom. The wings open, close, open, close. A slow, almost meditative pulse. With each movement, a breath of air rolls outward, delicate, nearly invisible, but it moves. You begin to wonder, could that wingbeat really go anywhere? Could something so small reach farther than it seems? You sit down on the grass, letting the moment stretch. The idea lingers like morning mist, this whisper of motion, this quiet spark that might echo into something vast. The butterfly does not know that you are watching. It does not know you are thinking about the future. You begin to imagine the path of the air it displaces. A single flap sends a tremor into the molecules nearby, an invisible push like a ripple on a pond. Those molecules bump into others, and those into others still. The disturbance travels slow but persistent, radiating out in widening circles. It grows thinner, fainter, but it does not vanish. It moves. A mile away, a leaf shifts on a tree you cannot see. A gust of wind picks up on the other side of the valley, over an ocean. A front builds just slightly stronger than it might have, and somewhere, days later, maybe even weeks, a storm finds its form, all because something, somewhere, began, because something small dared to move. This is not a fantasy. This is not poetry alone. This is the whisper of a scientific truth, one of the most quietly powerful ideas to arise in modern thought. It is the idea that the world, while governed by rules and patterns, is exquisitely sensitive to beginnings. That even in a universe of laws, the tiniest nudge can lead to immeasurable change. This is called sensitive dependence on initial conditions. You'll come to know it more intimately as the butterfly effect. But for now, it is only a feeling, a knowing that everything begins with something else, that the future is always balancing on the edge of something small. You close your eyes and lean back. Your breathing becomes part of the garden's rhythm. Inhale, exhale. And in your mind, you begin to drift, not far, just a little. You picture a scientist half a world away, studying the air. She is typing code into a weather model, entering equations into a machine that simulates the skies, the air, the pressure. the temperature. She's trying to understand how weather behaves. But the further out she predicts, the more her models begin to fall apart. A 10-day forecast becomes guesswork. 2 weeks becomes fog. Her computer runs the same code twice, and each time, with the tiniest change, it spits out a different sky. That scientist's name, long ago, was Edward Lorenz in the 1960s. While working at MIT, Lorenz was running weather simulations on one of the earliest computers. The system could predict how air moved across the globe. One day, to save time, he restarted a simulation using rounded numbers, shaving off just a few decimal places, a tiny difference. But the result? The simulation evolved wildly, differently. To the computer, it was just a small change in input to the model. It was an entirely new world. You feel this, somehow, in your bones, the idea that the little things matter, not as decoration, but as cause. As truth. You think of a heartbeat that begins in silence, a drop of rain that triggers a flood, a thought that leads to a word, that leads to a movement, that leads to a lifetime. These are not isolated incidents. These are the very structure of time. You are not in control of everything, but you are part of everything, a thread woven through the tapestry of cause and effect. And each breath you take moves something, however imperceptibly, forward. You open your eyes again. The butterfly is gone, but its path still lingers in your imagination, a slow spiral upward into air you cannot see. You begin to wonder how many of these spirals unfold around you without notice. In the garden, you look around more closely now. The petals of a flower close just slightly in the shade. A spider weaves its web with trembling legs. A bee, barely larger than your fingertip, lifts off from a blossom and drifts out of view. Each movement leads somewhere, touches something, nudges the next moment forward. Nothing is truly isolated, not even stillness. Your gaze softens again. Now you are thinking more broadly, not just about butterflies, or breezes, or gardens. You are thinking about the nature of patterns, of systems, of lives intertwined. You are thinking about all the invisible starting points, those unmeasurable beginnings that stretch outward across time. A child hears a song on the radio and learns to love music. A seed falls from a tree and becomes a forest. A single letter, read by the right eyes, changes a life. And somewhere, perhaps, the weather begins to shift, not because of any one large thing, but because of thousands of small ones, each building upon the last. You are beginning to see the world as a web, not a line. A web where each strand is responsive, where nothing goes unheard, nothing unnoticed by the quiet logic of the universe. Even chaos, you realize, has roots, and that is the strange comfort of it all. That behind every whirlwind of complexity, there might be a single whisper that started it all. You stretch your fingers in the grass and feel how cool the ground is beneath you. You are still, but the stillness does not mean nothing is happening. The air moves, the light bends, the insects hum. Even when you feel at rest, the world is turning, and so you lie back, allowing your body to become part of this rhythm, this slow wave of being. You do not need to change the world to affect it. You only need to exist in it with attention, to see the beauty in beginnings, to trust that what begins, even in silence, continues. And so you wonder, quietly, if a butterfly can stir the wind, if a breath can shape a breeze, then what happens in the mind? What kind of weather lives in the world of thought? What happens when chaos awakens? Asterisk, you are no longer in the garden. Now you find yourself somewhere colder, quieter, a room filled with books, paper, and the faint hum of a machine. You feel it more than hear it, the low murmur of electricity running through circuits. A time when computers are still new, still large and clunky and filled with blinking lights. A time when data comes out of printers in long, ribboned sheets. This is the early 1960s. You are standing behind a man who doesn't yet know he's about to change the world. His name is Edward Lorenz. He is not flashy. He speaks softly. His office is cluttered. He studies the weather, not with clouds or thermometers, but with numbers, with equations, with models of wind and temperature and pressure, all stitched into lines of code. Lorenz is trying to answer a very old question. Can we predict the future if we know enough about the present? Asterisk, he enters numbers into his machine. Not forecasts, not forecasts. Might guesses, but the best physics and math they have. The equations of motion for the air, fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, and then he presses the start button, and the machine clacks to life. What appears on the paper are not maps. They are curves, graphs, trails of numbers that show how the weather should evolve over time. It is a strange kind of magic, watching a machine whisper the future. But one day, he makes a small change, not even on purpose. He reruns a simulation, but instead of typing in the full set of decimal values for a variable, say 0.506127, he types just 0.506, a shortcut, just to see something quickly, and the result. The weather in the model diverges wildly, not just a little, not just a few clouds rearranged. The end result is entirely different. Asterisk. The future splits open, all because of a difference smaller than a raindrop. You sit with that for a moment. A machine that followed the same laws, the same equations, produced two different futures. Because of a number so small, it would have rounded away on most calculators. This was not an error. This was a truth hidden inside the math itself. Asterisk. You begin to drift deeper into the numbers, as if floating on the surface of thought. Lorenz's discovery is not just a curiosity. It is the birth of something vast and trembling. It is the birth of chaos theory, not chaos as disorder or randomness, but chaos as a system so sensitive, so finely balanced, that the smallest change at the beginning creates vast differences in the outcome. Think of a marble on the top of a hill. You nudge it just a little, and it rolls down. But the direction it rolls, the path it takes, that depends entirely on that first tiny push. A gust of wind, a single blade of grass, a speck of sand. Now imagine that hill has millions of valleys, and the marble could fall into any of them. One push, and a destiny is chosen. In chaos theory, this is called sensitive dependence on initial conditions. It means that knowing the present, even perfectly, may not be enough to know the future. Because every system, no matter how small, is a tangle of connections, influences, and loops. And those loops grow quickly, exponentially, from butterfly wings to weather systems, from a decimal to a storm. You return to the machine. The graphs it prints look strange, not smooth lines or simple curves, but spirals, jagged loops. They seem random at first, but Lorenz stares at them longer. Something is hiding in the motion. A pattern that isn't a pattern. A structure that almost repeats, but never quite. This is what would later be called a strange ATTR. An attractor is what pulls a system toward certain behavior over time. A planet orbits a star because gravity is an attractor. A pendulum swings because energy pulls it toward a resting point. But strange attractors are different. They do not pull systems to a simple place. They pull them into a dance, a bounded, beautiful chaos. Each time the system loops, it passes near the same points, but never lands in the same place. Like a snowflake that's always forming, but never the same twice. Like the weather, like the mind. Lorenz had found something profound. Deterministic systems with clear rules and equations, could still be unpredictable. The future isn't always hidden in the present. Sometimes it's too delicate to catch. You pause here, letting the idea settle in your breath. This isn't about whether alone. It's about all the things that follow rules but don't give the same results twice. The economy, the heartbeat, a forest after fire. Your own thoughts changing as you read this, not because they are random, but because they are alive with sensitivity, alive with chaos. You imagine tracing a line through one of Lorenz's graphs, a delicate loop, like a butterfly's path across a meadow. Now change one tiny point at the beginning. The whole line shifts. New places, new loops, a different story from the same start. You begin to think about how this lives in your world. In conversations where a single word can turn connection into distance. In relationships where a glance becomes a turning point. In choices where the tiniest decision becomes the root of a life. There is comfort in this. Not fear, not paralysis, but wonder. That even in the smallest parts of you, there is possibility. Even your silences carry momentum. You think of all the futures hidden in your past. You return once more to the idea of non-linearity, another piece of chaos theory. A non-linear system is one in which the whole is not just the sum of its parts. It is a system where doubling the input does not double the result, where cause and effect do not follow straight lines. You see this everywhere now. In nature, in emotions, in cities, in flocks of birds. Feedback loops, cascades, runaway effects. One thought leads to 10. One event reshapes thousands, not because the system is broken, but because it is alive with interaction. And then you remember something deeper. Chaos does not mean destruction. Chaos does not mean disorder. Chaos is simply order you cannot yet see. Hidden in the spirals, there is symmetry. Hidden in the unpredictability, there is pattern, fractals, feedback, harmony in motion. This is not a rejection of science. It is an evolution of it. It means we study systems differently now, with humility, with awe. Knowing that complexity is not the enemy of understanding, it is its invitation, and now you drift upward again, away from the hum of the machine, away from the scroll of numbers and into something more open. You picture the world as a single, vast system, air, water, heat, life, thought, all interacting, not just side by side, but tangled. Every action touching another. This is not fantasy. This is mathematics. The math of chaos. The math of how one thing, just one, becomes everything. And you wonder if the present is this delicate. What does that mean for the next moment? Perhaps it's time to leave the numbers and return to the sky. To follow a single breath of warm air, a molecule nudged by the sun. To trace the story, not through formulas, but through the atmosphere itself, too. Feel the weather begin to whisper. Asterisk, you begin this journey not on the ground, but in the sky. You are weightless, drifting through the middle of the atmosphere, suspended in a sea of invisible motion. Layers of cloud. Below you, the land curves softly into green, brown, and gold. And all around you, air, it doesn't sit still. It never has. Even in silence, it moves. Molecules, bouncing, rubbing, whispering. At first, the motion is gentle. A lazy swirl here, a soft updraft there. But if you could see it, truly see it, you'd witness something astonishing. A world in constant negotiation. A theater of tiny collisions and vast consequences. This is where weather begins, not with storms or lightning or thunder, but with temperature, with sunlight warming one patch of earth more than another. One stone becomes slightly warmer than the one beside it. That warmth touches the air. The air begins to rise, and the winds begin to shift. You follow a single molecule of air. It bumps into another, then another. One push becomes 1,000. Tiny impulses build, echoing across invisible distances. These aren't gusts yet. These are conditions, the slow assembly of potential, and then clouds begin to form. Clouds are not static. They are born of change. Warm air rises. Cool air falls. Moisture condenses. You are now inside one, a gray, cottony landscape where droplets gather like memories. This cloud didn't begin as one thing. It is the child of billions of actions. Water evaporated from a river. Air lifted by mountain slope. Heat radiating from a city roof. All these threads come together here, above a quiet field, to form a shape in the sky. You drift out of the cloud and look down. Patterns emerge. Not random, but not predictable either. Swirls of cloud echoed the curves of oceans. Air masses press and retreat like slow tides. You see high pressure pushing low. You see cold fronts knifing through warm currents. And everywhere, the air tells a story. You've never realized it before, but the sky is a diary written in vapor and wind. It remembers where the heat has been. It responds to the tiniest change. This is where the meteorologist lives, not just in forecasts and symbols, but in patterns. She looks at the sky with trained eyes, reading its curves like music. She knows how quickly certainty fades into probability. A front may move east or stall. A cloud may build or vanish. A breeze may become a gale or disappear. She does not control it. She listens. She studies its temperament. She works with tools that whisper of temperature, humidity, and wind speed. But in the end, the weather is not a map. It is a conversation between the earth and the sky. You begin to understand what makes this conversation so complex. The system is non-linear. That means cause and effect aren't always proportional. Double the heat, and you don't just get double the storm. You might get no storm, or 10. You realize that every variable affects every other: air, land, ocean, ice. A volcano erupts in one hemisphere, and the wind shifts in another. The shape of a coastline bends the path of a hurricane. A single tree in the right moment breaks the speed of a fire wind. The world is tuned, not like a machine, but like an instrument. You imagine this vast, invisible orchestra, thermals rising like violins, jet streams like cellos, thunder like bass drums, and deep beneath it all, a subtle rhythm, the heartbeat of heat itself. Because heat is what drives it all. The sun warms the earth unevenly. Dark forests absorb more heat than pale deserts. Mountains rise into cooler altitudes. Oceans store heat, then release it slowly. All of this becomes the breath of weather. You begin to feel it now, in your own breath, in the way your chest rises and falls. You, too, are part of this rhythm. You follow a gust now. It begins as a warm draft above a parking lot. Just a shimmer of heat floats upward, meets cooler air, and begins to bend. The bending becomes a spiral. The spiral becomes a breeze. It passes over a neighborhood, lifting dry leaves. It rushes down a street, pressing against a window pane. It nudges the sail of a small boat, and then it climbs, climbs, until it meets other winds, layers and currents stacking like waves in the sky. Together, they spin, and somewhere, hundreds of miles away, clouds begin to thicken. You realize now that a storm is not a single thing. It is a system, a chain reaction built from 1,000 smaller moments. It is air rising, falling, twisting. It is water moving from vapor to drop. It is friction, expansion, cooling, and sometimes, in just the right conditions, it is lightning. Not just fire from the sky, but an equalization of charge built slowly over time. One cloud rubbing against another, a slow tension, and then a flash. You remember the first time you were caught in a storm. The wind picked up without warning. The sky turned a shade of silver you had never seen. And then rain. A wall of it, instant and complete. And in that moment, you didn't think about heat or pressure or evaporation. You just stood there, a small human in a vast, humming machine. You felt awe, not fear, because something about the storm felt alive. Now you know why it is alive, in a way, not conscious, not breathing, but emergent. Emergence is the idea that complexity can arise from simplicity, that countless small, local interactions can give birth to grand, unexpected behavior. The wind doesn't know what it's doing, but it builds a hurricane. The droplet doesn't plan to fall, but it becomes a flood. Each tiny part only responds to the part near it, and from that, the system evolves. You look back down toward the land. You can now see storms forming from above, swirls of white like fingerprints across the planet. They move with a kind of slow grace, not just wind, but rotation, not just pressure, but pattern. These are cyclones, born of temperature differences, and the Earth's spin. The Earth spins beneath all this, and as it does, the winds curve. This is the Coriolis effect, a force that bends motion across the globe. It's why storms spiral instead. It's why the northern and southern hemispheres host mirrored dances of wind. You marvel at it, that something as simple as a spin can shape the sky. You begin to descend now, falling gently through layers of air. You feel the atmosphere like an ocean thickening around you. From this view, you realize how small the planet's protective shell really is. Just a thin blue veil clinging to a stone in space, yet within it, every breath, every breeze, every cloud you've ever known. Weather is not separate from life. It is life. It waters our crops. It drives our migrations. It shapes our architecture, our food, our rituals, and yet it resists mastery. Even now, with satellites, supercomputers, and endless models, we still get it wrong. Forecasts fade after a few days. Predictions split into probabilities. Not because we aren't smart enough, but because the system is too sensitive, too interconnected, too beautiful in its refusal to be tamed. And so you sit once more with that gentle truth that the sky is not chaos. It is structured uncertainty. It is the ongoing story of balance, heat, rising, cold, falling, water circling, and at the center of it all, the tiniest beginnings. You think again of that butterfly. You wonder where its wingbeat went, whether it joined the updraft that rose above a field, whether it nudged a cloud just slightly sooner, whether it helped birth the breeze that now touches your cheek. You will never know, but the possibility is enough, and so you lie still, listening to the winds whisper their stories. You do not need to understand them fully. You only need to know they are always speaking, in spirals, in silence, in storms, and just beyond the clouds, where patterns become ecosystems. Something even more delicate awaits. Asterisk, you are walking now. The wind has quieted. The sky above is filtered through green, soft beams of light slipping through the canopy. This is a forest, ancient and humming. Moss carpets the floor. Roots twist beneath your feet like secret rivers. Leaves sigh with memory. Each step you take is padded and slow. You feel small here, not in fear, but in reverence. You are surrounded by a living system, layered and humming, where no motion is wasted, and nothing exists in isolation. You stop beside a fallen tree. Its bark is softened, sunken, but inside the rot, new life is taking shape. Insects, fungi, small green shoots. The tree's ending is not an ending. It is an opening. You are beginning to see it now. Nature is not a collection of things. It is a network of events. A bee hums past your ear. You watch it land on a flower. It's such a small thing, a few seconds of contact. But that moment, that one decision by that one bee will help form a seed. That seed may drift on the wind. It may root. It may become a tree. That tree may feed a bird. That bird may drop a seed somewhere else, all from the wingbeat of a bee. The pattern continues, not in a straight line, but outward, like ripples in a pond, overlapping, merging, spreading. This ecology of life, not chaos, not randomness, but interdependence, a balance so delicate, so intricate, that even the smallest nudge matters. You sit beneath a tree whose roots reach deeper than you can imagine. The tree breathes, not like you do, but it breathes all. The same, it draws in sunlight and turns it into food. It pulls water from the soil, and beneath your feet, through a network of fungal threads, the mycorrhizae, it shares that food with nearby plants. Yes, trees share. They send nutrients, warnings, instructions. If one is damaged by drought or insect, others learn to prepare. These messages travel underground, across a biological internet older than language. They call it the Wood Wide Web. And you wonder, how many silent conversations are happening right now beneath your feet? Asterisk, you rise and walk deeper. A bird calls. In the distance, a squirrel chatters. A drop of water slips from a leaf. Each sound is ordinary, yet none is meaningless. Here, in the forest, everything participates. A mushroom breaks down the dead. A worm turns soil into nourishment. A single raindrop loosens a seed's casing. There is no small thing, only small beginnings. You kneel by a stream. The water is clear, whispering across stones. It began as mist, as snow, as rainfall on a mountain long ago. But here it is, flowing beside you, a part of the cycle of life that has no beginning and no end. This stream carries more than water. It carries minerals, memories, clues. Deer come here to drink. Their hooves churn the mud. Seeds cling to their fur and scatter as they wander. Frogs lay eggs along the bank. A dragonfly lands briefly, then lifts off again, and all of it depends on timing. The moment a flower blooms, the day a bee hatches, the hour rain begins. If even one piece shifts, the web adjusts. Sometimes it breaks. You think of extinction now, how one species vanishes and others tremble. The disappearance of bees can mean the disappearance of fruit. The loss of wolves can overfill rivers with deer, stripping the land bare. This is called a trophic cascade. It is the domino of life when one thread is pulled and the whole cloth begins to shift. But the opposite is true as well. One species returns, and balance returns with it. Wolves reintroduced into Yellowstone changed the entire landscape. The deer moved, trees regrew, birds returned, even rivers rerouted, held in place by new roots. One presence restored a pattern. You look up now, watching the sunlight shift across the leaves. You realize that nature is not just full of systems. It is a system, not separate parts, but flowing currents of matter, energy. Intention, the carbon in your breath once lived in a tree. The oxygen you inhale was made by a leaf, and every moment is part of a slow exchange. A rhythm of give and receive that links all living things. Even your silence is heard. Even your stillness is felt. Asterisk. You remember the butterflies again. They live here too, flitting among wildflowers, laying eggs on soft leaves. Hatch, and those caterpillars eat and grow and climb. They build cocoons, they rest, they change, and when they emerge, they fly, they pollinate, they feed birds. They die, they return, each life so short, yet the rhythm continues. You wonder now, what if one doesn't hatch? What if one tree blooms too late? Does it matter? Yes, because it all matters. That is the gift and the weight of nature. Every action participates. You Sit on a mossy log and listen to the slow tick of this hidden clockwork. It is not mechanical. It is not precise, but it is deeply ordered, not by control, but by balance. Energy flows in. Energy flows out. A seed becomes a tree. A tree becomes soil. Soil feeds the next seed. There is no waste. There is no end. Only transformation. Now your mind begins to zoom out, gently, slowly. Like drifting above the forest canopy, you see the systems overlapping. Rainfall patterns feed rivers. Rivers shape valleys. Valleys shelter trees. Trees slow the wind. And everywhere, feedback loops emerge. Positive feedback, where a change amplifies itself. Negative feedback, where a change slows itself down. The earth, too, adjusts too much carbon. And plants grow faster. Too little nitrogen, and microbes awaken. Balance is not static. It is alive, an act of constant conversation. And you, here, listening, you are part of it. Your breath feeds. The trees, your choices, touch the soil. Your presence matters. You are not outside the system. You are within it. Every movement, every quiet act is a thread in this web. Asterisk, you feel now a kind of reverence. Not awe that crushes you, but awe that includes you. Because for all the chaos, all the unpredictability, there is beauty in the logic of life. A bee finds a flower, not by reason, but by instinct. A bird builds a nest, not by design, but by inheritance. Yet, it all works. It all holds. Each system loops back on itself, adjusting, correcting, growing. The forest speaks. Even when it says nothing, it moves. Even when it stands still, and you begin to hear what it's telling you. Small things matter. Quiet things endure. The invisible shapes the visible. You rise now, slowly, and begin to walk again, deeper, still, into the green. The air cools. The path narrows. The light dims, but ahead, just barely, you hear something new. Not rustling, not leaves, but silence of a different kind. A stillness not of life, but of matter itself. You are no longer walking through roots and branches. You are descending now, inward, smaller, smaller, toward something deeper than cells or sap, toward the hidden dance of particles. You are shrinking softly, gently, not like falling, but like folding inward. The forest fades, the trees blur, then vanish. The dirt beneath your feet becomes a grain, then a speck, then a whisper of dust. Beyond the membranes of the smallest root hair, into a realm where matter itself begins to shimmer. You are entering the quantum world, and here, everything changes. This is not a place of rules as you know them. There are no trees, no wind, no sound. There is no place in the way you're used to. Here, objects are not solid. Particles do not move in straight lines. Now, time does not always tick forward in perfect rhythm. Instead, this world hums with uncertainty. Particles flicker in and out of being like tiny lanterns sputtering in fog. They appear, they disappear. They reappear in places they were not expected to be. Welcome to the strange heart of the universe. You find yourself beside a particle. It is unimaginably small, a speck of energy, a dot with no dimension, a possibility wrapped in silence, and yet it matters. Because this particle, an electron, perhaps, helps build atoms. Atoms build molecules. Molecules form the cells that make up your hands, your thoughts, your breath. You are built from this. From these flickering, uncertain moments, you try to look closer. But the closer you look, the less you can say. This is the central paradox of quantum physics. You cannot know everything at once. The more precisely you know a particle's position, the less you can know its speed, the more clearly you know its momentum. The blurrier its location becomes. This is not a limitation of your instruments. This is reality. This is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and it is not a crack in the world. It is the way the world is built. You imagine now a particle being observed. To see it, you must shine light on it. But light is not nothing. Light is energy, and the moment you touch the particle with light, the moment you try to know it, you've changed it. Your gaze has nudged the system. The act of observation becomes a cause. And so you wonder, is the particle really there when you're not looking? Or does it wait like a thought, unspoken? In this realm, location is a suggestion. A particle is not a dot. It is a wave function, a blur of probabilities. It exists not in one place, but in many possible ones, until something forces a choice. This is superposition, when a particle holds multiple states, coiled together in potential, and when it is measured, it collapses into one, a single truth, chosen from the sea of MAYBES 9. You begin to see how this might echo outward, how the smallest decisions, even at the level of particles, matter. You think of a neuron in your brain. A chemical signal crosses a synapse. A vesicle releases a molecule. A single ion shifts. Did that molecule bind or not? Did the impulse fire or not? Did the memory form or did it fade? The line between possibility and action is thinner than you imagined, and the world, your world, dances across it every moment. You drift now through the strange corridors of quantum entanglement. Here, particles do not merely exist, they share existence. Create two particles together, entangle them, and they become linked, no matter how far they drift apart. Their properties remain bound. If you change one, the other responds. Instantly, Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He didn't like it. It defied the speed of light. It defied comfort, but it is real. The universe, at its deepest level, is connected. You imagine two photons born from the same light event. One travels left, one travels right. Light years apart, they remain bound in silence. A shift in one ripples through the other, without sound, without signal. It makes you wonder if particles can feel one another across space. Then how much more minds feel across time? Quantum physics does not work like ordinary physics. There are no apples falling from trees here, no clean arcs, no predictable swings. Instead, there is a whispering, a probability cloud, a tendency, a field of chance. You begin to understand what a quantum field is. Not particles moving through space, but space itself humming with energy. Particles are excitations in that field, temporary wrinkles in the fabric of everything. Every particle you've ever known, electron, quark, photon, is just a note struck in a deeper instrument, and that instrument plays on. You descend farther still into the uncertainty of the vacuum. Even in empty space, particles flicker in and out of existence, a foam of becoming. These are virtual particles, not permanent, not stable, but real enough to affect forces, real enough to nudge atoms, to push plates, to influence galaxies from nothing. Something dot again and again. You sit now beside the quantum tunneling barrier. Here, particle reaches a wall. It does not have enough energy to climb over, and yet, sometimes it appears on the other side, not by force, but by chance, as if the universe rolled the dice, and for a moment, the improbable became real. Quantum tunneling is not just a curiosity. It allows the sun to shine. It allows reactions to happen that otherwise never would. It allows beginnings, the fusion at the heart of stars. The fire that feeds life on Earth depends on this uncertainty. Without it, there is no warmth, no light, no us. You begin to feel the quiet power of this realm. It does not shout. It does not burn with motion. It hums. It flickers, it flickers, it breathes potential and all that you are, every cell, every glance, every kiss, every grief is built on this hum. You are beginning to understand something strange and beautiful. That randomness, at this scale, is not a flaw. It is what allows the world to unfold. It gives space for freedom, for variation, for life to try something new. If every outcome were predetermined, nothing would ever change. But here, in the tiny trembling of particles, the door remains open. You return now to your body. You feel your hands, your heartbeat. You remember that every atom in you once passed through a star. Each carbon in your blood, each calcium in your bones, formed in the fire of a sun that lived and died long before Earth began. You are not only made of quantum particles, you are made of history, the dance of chance and law, wrapped into flesh. And so you rest, not in stillness, but in motion, too small to see. You realize the ground beneath you is never truly still. Even the silence is vibrating. Particles shiver, fields flicker, space breathes, and you, thinking, sleeping, wondering, are part of this hum, not above it, not outside it, but within it, and just beyond this subatomic dance. There is a flash, a whisper of electricity in the dark, not in the stars, but inside you, a flicker in the brain, the birth of thought. Asterisk, you are rising now from the quantum hush, from the flickering fields of probability. You drift upward into warmth, into density, into structure. Matter organizes itself once more. Molecules fold, cells assemble. You are rising into yourself, into a cathedral of tissue, a living labyrinth of thought and memory. Encased in a soft skull, you are entering the brain. And here, too, the butterfly effect endures. The brain is not one mind. It is many. It is trillions of signals passing in silence. It is 86 billion neurons, each shaped by experience, wrapped in glial care. Surrounded by cerebrospinal tides, these neurons do not think in language. They speak in pulses, in sparks. In electricity, you are built of voltage, tiny shifts in charge across membranes thinner than light. You imagine a single neuron now long, thin, reaching dot. It receives input from dozens, sometimes thousands of others. A whisper of sodium here. A gate opens there. Then a decision. Fire. Or wait. It fires. An impulse travels down the axon. A story begins. You follow that story from one neuron to the next, across the gap called the synapse, where chemicals drift like messengers in the dark. These neurotransmitters don't linger. They arrive. They bind. They release. And in that brief moment, a thought forms. Not a word, but the seed of a word. Not a picture, but the beginning of seeing. Not a memory, but its scent. Asterisk, every memory you have, every dream, every face exists in these shifting networks. They are not stored like books on a shelf. They are reconstructed. Each time, from a pattern. Fire this neuron, then that one. Then that one. Recreate the feeling. Reweave the image. And each time, something changes. Memory is not fixed. It is alive. It is influenced by how you feel now, by what you just experienced, by the smallest flicker of context. Your past is fluid. Yourself is a process. Asterisk, you begin to see your brain not as a machine, but as a weather system. Currents swirl. Pressure builds. Fronts collide. Some thoughts move like storms, sudden, overwhelming. Others pass like breezes, light, almost forgotten. A single emotional moment, a laugh, a wound, can reshape the terrain. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's quiet ability to adapt, to change its wiring, to learn even late into life. What fires together, wires together, and so, with repetition. A habit forms with stillness, a calm returns with trauma, a path deepens with care. Healing begins. You sit now inside your own mind. You picture it not as gray matter, but as a glowing forest, connections branching, lighting up like fireflies in summer dot. Each flicker is a thought, each cluster a memory dot, each trail a pattern, and yet no path is fixed. This is the comfort and the burden of being alive. Your mind can change. You wonder about the origin of a thought. Where does it begin? With a question, with a feeling, or deeper, with a flicker in a dendrite, a random pattern, a spontaneous burst. Even in sleep, your neurons fire. Even in dreams, the brain builds worlds, sometimes from memory, sometimes from fear, sometimes from fragments that make no sense, and yet they feel true. The mind is not always logical, but it is always alive. You are walking now through the pocto, the seahorse-shaped structure that helps form memory. It does not store the past. It organizes it, like a librarian arranging moments, deciding what to keep, what to discard, and where to shelve the rest. And nearby, the amygdala listens. It watches for emotion. Fear sharpens memory. Joy paints it brighter. Trauma carves it deeper. Emotion is not a layer on thought. It is part of it. You do not think. Then feel. You think with feeling. Always. You now enter the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, the seat of reflection. Here is where you plan, where you weigh choices, where you resist urges. But even here, the butterfly effect pulses. A small distraction, a beep, a thought, a smell, and the course of your decision shifts. You meant to say one thing. You said another. You meant to pause. You spoke, and now the moment is changed. Not wrong, just different. You begin to understand the fragility of tension. Your mind can hold only so much at once. It is always choosing what to ignore. And in that filtering, stories are written. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world your brain lets in. Your memories are reconstructions. Your thoughts are echoes. But none of this makes them less real. It makes them alive. And so you begin to see your own mind as part of the butterfly field. Every sensation, every sound, every flicker of light enters as a whisper and may become a storm. A kind word can echo for decades. A small insult can spiral into shame. A glance of love can ignite a life. A forgotten moment may become the root of a dream. You do not choose which flickers grow, but you can choose where to water them. You think now of emotion. It is not just chemistry. It is a pattern, a map drawn in voltage and hormone in history. A memory of being hurt may trigger tears, but so might song. So might assent, so might nothing you can name. This emergence, again, feelings rising from many causes, not from one event, but from the sum of experience. You remember now how stress tightens the chest, how fear shortens breath, how love slows the heart. All of this begins in the brain, not separate from the body, but woven with it. There is no mind-body divide. Your thoughts are physical. Your body is thoughtful. And in this unity, even the smallest mental gesture, a deep breath, a moment of gratitude, can ripple through your cells. You sit. Now at the edge of sleep, you feel the brain letting go. Thoughts slow. Memories soften. But even now, the brain does not rest. It sorts. It files. It deletes what it does not need. It strengthens what mattered. Dreams may come not from nowhere, but from the mind, stitching itself back together. Consolidation, integration, repair. Sleep is not escape. Sleep is learning. And now, in this stillness, you remember. The brain was shaped by evolution. It is not perfect. It guesses. It fills gaps. It prefers patterns over randomness. It sees faces in clouds It sees meaning in coincidence. This is not flaw. This is survival. This is story. You are a storyteller made of electricity. And your stories matter. They change you. They change others. And so, one neural flicker at a time, the world is reshaped. You lie still now. You listen. Inside your skull, silence. But beneath that silence, waves of thought. They do not shout. They ripple. Alpha, theta, delta, brainwaves. In sleep, brainwaves. In focus, brainwaves. In daydream. Your very state of being is a frequency, and your body listens. You think again of that butterfly. You wonder, could a single neuron, one tiny signal, change a life? Perhaps a word remembered, a feeling stirred, a thought returned to just in time. You do not need certainty to believe. You only need to feel the possibility, and just beneath the hum of thought, in the folds behind the eyes, something older is stirring. Not memory, not choice, but time. The story of the world, written not in sparks, but in steps. You are about to follow the wind backward. You are about to walk through history's quiet paths. Asterisk, you drift now, not through the air, nor through your mind, but through time. It doesn't feel like movement, feels like memory, slow, textured, full of echoes. You are carried, not by machines or clocks, but by the weight of moments layered upon one another. Each second, each breath has a lineage. History is not the past. It is the present, unfolding from countless threads. You begin to trace them now. Asterisk, the world you know, the shape of nations, the languages on your tongue, the food you eat, the rights you enjoy, did not fall from the sky. It rose slowly from choices made in candlelight, on battlefields, in secret letters, in passing glances. You follow one. A messenger pauses by a river, debating whether to cross before nightfall. He waits by morning. The message arrives too late. A war begins, a kingdom falls, and a future is rewritten. Asterisk. You begin to understand how fragile the world has always been. You see a scribe in ancient Mesopotamia, scratching lines into clay, a simple list of grain owed, names remembered, debts recorded. But in that act, the invention of writing, the course of human memory changes. What once passed from mouth to ear can now survive generations. Empires are born from records, and yet it began with a tablet, a stylus, a need. You walk through a Roman street. A child picks up a coin. It's not the coin itself, but what follows. He gives it to a man. The man buys a cup of wine. He speaks to another at the tavern. An idea is shared. That idea reaches a senator, a law changes, and 20 generations later, you benefit from that shift. But no one remembers the child with the coin. History rarely remembers its quietest authors. Asterisk, you see now that history is not written by the loudest. It is written by the smallest. The butterfly wing in the library. The cough in the crowd. The letter misplaced. A queen's miscarriage. A general's sleepless night. A farmer's unusually good harvest. Each sends ripples into the future. Some expand, some vanish, but all of them matter. You float over a battlefield. Now, the air is thick with smoke and decision. A commander considers 2 paths. One leads to loss, one leads to victory. He chooses not because of maps or honor, but because his foot slipped on mud. That slip echoes through treaties, migrations, new borders drawn. A child is born in the safety of a land that wasn't meant to exist. That child grows, creates, loves. One life made possible by a footstep in the wrong place. You move farther now into a small village. A woman teaches her daughter how to boil roots for dye. The color stains her fingers. The dye becomes a thread. The thread becomes a cloth. The cloth travels across. A traveler sees it. He asks about the pattern. He brings it home. There, an artist is inspired. A new motif is born. Centuries later, it becomes a national symbol, but no one remembers the hands that stained the root. Asterisk time is not a line. It is a web. Pull one string, and the whole structure shifts. This is sensitive dependence, not just of particles or minds, but of civilizations. You feel the weight of what almost happened. The assassinations prevented. The books never written. The cures never discovered or discovered, but ignored. You do not float through a single timeline. You drift among the ghosts of possibilities, and yet some ripples endure. A printing press clicks in a candlelit workshop. Pages emerge, one after another. A book, a pamphlet, an idea, no longer chained the mouths of priests or the halls of nobles. Thought begins to travel. The Enlightenment unfolds not as a fire, but as millions of small lamps lit in private rooms. And here you are now, the beneficiary of those lamps, reading, learning, remembering. You are not separate from the past. You are the past. Dreaming forward, you pass through a crowded dock. A ship is preparing to sail. A man chooses not to board. He stays behind. His child grows up in a different city, learns a different trade. That child's great-grandchild is you. You realize your existence is built on choices you'll never know. You are the fruit of forgotten crossroads, and in you, those choices continue. Asterisk, you pause now at a whisper. A mother soothes her child with a lullaby in a lost language. The melody survives in fragments, hummed by generations, half remembered, then written down by a collector centuries later. It finds its way into a symphony. The symphony plays on a rainy afternoon. Someone listens. They are moved. They change their mind about something important, and the ripple begins again. History is not a list of names. It is not kings and wars and treaties. It is touch. It is breath. It is gesture. A hand on a shoulder. A book left open on a table. A kindness offered without expectation. These are the atoms of change. Change. You wonder now how much of history was shaped by silence. A conversation avoided. A letter never sent. An apology never spoken. Did that silence close a door? Did it protect someone? Did it leave a question that echoes still? You begin to understand that time is filled with shadows, not of evil, but of possibility unchosen. The world is as much built from what didn't happen as what did. You walk into the 20th century. It hums with invention. Electric light, radio waves, flight, algorithms, all born not from one genius, but from many minds, tinkering, arguing, failing, trying again. A failed patent leads to a new idea. A bored technician creates something playful, which becomes vital. A soldier returns home, studies physics, teaches a student who changes the world, and still. It's the small things, the coffee break, the shared lab, the bedtime story, that shape the course. We remember the inventors. We forget the conversations. You pause now inside a darkened room. A child watches the moon through a telescope. They feel something, not just wonder, but connection. Decades later, that child will teach others to look up. Some of those children will become scientists. One will write a book. One will design a spacecraft. One will just lie beneath the stars and feel less alone. You see it clearly. Inspiration is a butterfly. It lands without warning, and when it does, it moves generations. History breathes within you. The rhythms of old decisions beat in your chest. You inherited more than genes. You inherited unfinished stories, dreams left halfway, journeys paused by death or war or forgetfulness, and you carry them now, not as burdens, but as seeds. What you choose to do with them shapes what comes next. And so, you sit at the riverbank of time. You see its currents wide and churning. Shaped by rainfall you will never witness, but the river flows past you, and as you cup your hands into it, you change it, even slightly, even now. One word spoken kindly, one hand extended, one moment of courage or restraint. These two are acts of history, not the kind that fill textbooks, but the kind that fill lives. You don't need to be remembered to matter. You only need to move gently and trust the ripple. You feel the breeze now, the one that connects yesterday to tomorrow. It rustles the pages of your own story, the story you are still writing, and just beyond that wind, through time and soil, something grows, not from wars, not from inventions, but from life itself, layered, shared, whispered forward. You feel it in your breath, you feel it in your bones, and soon you'll feel it in the stars. Asterisk, you are rising now, upward, outward, beyond breath, beyond thought. You are leaving the rhythm of human time, past the clock, past the candle, past the bones of history. Your body fades into memory. Your heartbeat dissolves into the silence between stars. You are looking at the universe not from the inside, but from far, far away, and everything changes. From here, Earth is smaller than a grain of salt, a pale, spinning marble cradled in a cradle of darkness. You can't see cities, you can't see borders, you don't hear voices, or wars, or prayers, only a flicker, blue and white, spinning silently against the black. But don't be fooled by the stillness. Inside that flicker are oceans, forests, songs, mothers, children, machines, dreams, and you. Now zoom farther back, beyond the solar system, beyond the Oort cloud, beyond the reach of radio waves. Stars cluster and swirl. You see the Milky Way, a whirlpool of hundreds of billions of stars. Ah, galaxy, one of many, each star, perhaps, with its own planets. Each planet, perhaps, with oceans. Each ocean, perhaps, with a ripple that changes something forever. You are floating among giants now, and yet, even here, the small matters. You find yourself beside a drifting particle of dust, not on Earth, but in the emptiness between stars. It is cold, silent, smaller than a cell, but around it, gravity bends, light curves, photons scatter. This tiny speck, forgotten, directionless shifts the geometry of space. The universe responds to everything. Even this, asterisk, you think of gravity now, not as a force, but as a feeling. It is the bending of space by mass. The way a presence, a star, a planet, even a dust mote, tells space-time how to shape itself, and in return, space-time tells matter how to move. You fall because the Earth curves the space around you. Planets orbit because the sun draws a well in the cosmic fabric, and black holes. Black holes are places where the bending becomes endless. You drift toward one. Now, you do not fall. You glide. It is silent, dart, a shadow made not of absence, but of everything, mass, time, memory, compressed beyond imagining at its edge. The event horizon marks the point of no return. Even light cannot escape, and yet around it, light dances. A glowing ring of matter spirals, heating, screaming soundlessly into the void. You realize this is not destruction, it is transformation. Matter will fall in, but information may echo forever. You think of Hawking radiation, the strange idea that black holes are not eternal, that slowly, over unthinkable spans of time, they evaporate. A whisper of particles escapes the grip. Not by explosion, by flicker, by breath. Even black holes end. Even eternity has a half-life. Now you move again, outward. Beyond galaxies, you see the cosmic web. Vast tendrils of matter stretch across the darkness, linking galaxies like beads on invisible strings. These filaments hold the shape of everything. They formed from tiny differences in density after the Big Bang, quantum fluctuations magnified by time. The entire architecture of the cosmos clusters. Voids, filaments, traces back to randomness in a sea of energy billions of years ago. From Shivers came structure. Asterisk, you drift into a void now. No stars, no dust, just space. And even here, dark energy hums. The universe is expanding, not like a balloon growing in space, but like space itself. Growing galaxies drift apart, not because they move, but because the stage beneath them stretches. This expansion accelerates. Why? No one knows. Dark energy is silent, invisible, undefinable, but it shapes everything. You realize, sometimes the strongest forces cannot be seen. You move toward a galaxy again. It spins, stars dancing in orbits like notes on a music sheet. But their speed defies logic. Stars at the edges move too fast, as if something unseen holds them in place. This is dark matter, not a thing, not light, not atoms, but mass, invisible mass. It bends space, shapes galaxies, holds clusters together. No one has touched it, but without it, the universe would fall apart. The unseen is often the most faithful. You think now of time, not as hours, but as dimension, a thread stretching backward from your moment of breath to the birth of stars. You follow it, past civilizations, past Earth's formation, past the cooling of the young cosmos, into the instant of the Big Bang. Not an explosion, but an unfolding, not from a point in space, but of space itself, everywhere, all at once. And before that, we do not know, we may never know, but the echoes remain in the cosmic microwave background, a whisper of birth, still drifting through the sky. You listen now. The universe hums in microwave, every direction. A faint glow left over from the first light ever released, when atoms first formed and photons slipped free. It is 13.8 billion years old, but it still reaches you. You are made of stardust, but you are also made of history, written in light, curled in the silence between galaxies. Asterisk, and in all this, in the vastness, you return to the small dot, to the mote, the single grain of dust, floating, invisible, unwanted, yet it might seed a planet, form a ring around Saturn, trigger lightning in an ass. Alien sky, hold a molecule of water that touches life. There is no such thing as insignificant. Not in physics, not in you. You think now of scale, how everything depends on perspective. Ah, quark and a quasar differ in size by incomprehensible degrees, and yet both obey the same patterns. Forces unify, symmetries emerge, particles sing the same song across galaxies. The laws of physics do not change, only the stage does, and so, from scale to scale, the story continues. You return now to Earth from this height. It is perfect, whole, alive, and yet everything on it is fragile, shaped by weather, tides, tectonic breaths, and beneath that by atoms, by the motion of electrons, by the angle of photons, by dust, by chance, by chance, by choice, by you. You are part of this universe, not a visitor, not a spectator, a participant. The same atoms that drifted through stars. Now speak your thoughts. The same laws that shape galaxies shape your hands, and the same butterfly effect echoes here too. Every act, however small, sends ripples. Asterisk, you inhale. You think of kindness. You think of destruction. You think of hope. Each a vibration in the mind. Each a shift in a body. Each a consequence in the world. It all matters because it all connects, and so, in the quiet of night, beneath the turning stars, you lie still, your eyes closed, your thoughts fading, but inside you, a cosmos breathes. Dust woven into flesh, light translated into dreams. You are not lost in the universe. You are the universe, briefly remembering itself. And just before you sleep, one thought remains. If such small things shape galaxies, then perhaps your quiet presence, too, bends the future. You are not here by accident. You are here with gravity. You are here with weight. You are here, and the world feels you. Asterisk, you are still now, lying in the quiet. Your breath soft, your limbs warm with sleep's invitation. The universe no longer spins around you. It spins with you. All the journeys you've taken through atoms and galaxies, through thought and time, lead you here. Back to the source, back to the single presence that has witnessed it all. You are not alone in this silence. You are with the moment. You are with the air. You are with the pulse of the earth beneath you. But more than that, you are influence. You have always been. It may not feel like it. Lying here in the dark, the day has left you. The noise has faded. The world is elsewhere. But even now, you are moving things. A shift in posture. A breath taken instead of held. A kind thought extended silently to someone far away. These are not nothing. They are causes. You remember the butterfly in the garden. How this all began. It fluttered, unaware of consequence, and yet the stir of its wings touched the air. The air touched the clouds. The clouds gathered and rained, and someone, somewhere, felt the storm. You are no different. Your choices ripple. The way you speak to others, the way you listen, the things you build, the things you let go. They stretch outward, quietly, invisibly, into the fabric of lives you may never know. A word you spoke years ago still lives in someone's memory. A gesture forgotten by you is remembered by another with gratitude. We do not always get to see our impact, but it is there. It is always there. You think of your childhood, moments that shaped you, many small, most unnoticed, a smile, a mistake forgiven, a question answered, a quiet protection offered in passing. These did not happen by accident. They were someone's butterfly wing, and now you carry them not as weight, but as weather. The emotional climate of your life, the forecast that follows you, and you, too, are a forecaster. Each day, you decide the climate you bring into the room, tense or kind, dismissive or open, afraid or hopeful. You can't control the world, but you do shape its roots atmosphere, one breath at a time. You may never become famous. You may never be remembered by history, but that was never the measure of mattering. Your worth is not in echoes, it is in presence, it is in influence without witness. A stranger you helped will never forget you. A friend you loved became stronger. A child you smiled at will smile at their own one day. You are made of echoes. Yes, but you are also the beginning of new ones. You are not just shaped by the world. You are shaping it, and not someday. Not when you're ready. Now, you remember something else now. The silence of space, the unpredictability of particles, the entanglement of distant things. It's all here in your relationships, your ideas, your instincts. You are a quantum being in a classical world. You are pattern and possibility. You are stable and uncertain, and this is a gift because it means you are never only one thing. You are potential. You are the music of a mind that can change, adapt, choose again, even after failure, even after silence, even after loss. You breathe in, you feel time pass, and with each breath, you are writing, not on paper, not in stone, but in motion. You are writing with the wind of your presence, with your ripple, with your reach. It is not your job to fix the world. It is not your job to carry it all. Your role is much simpler and much harder: to be awake to your own impact, to act with gentleness where you can, to make space for love when it is offered, to offer it when it is needed, and to know, truly know, that you are part of something vast, beautiful, and becoming. You are the butterfly now, not fragile, but free, not small, but stunning in your effect. And you do not need to understand the storm to know that. You've stirred it. The world feels you. The world shifts with you as you close your eyes. Feel this. Your heart is a drumbeat. Your thoughts are weather. Your presence is enough. You are not late. You are not lost. You are the current. You are the whisper. You are the cause. Somewhere, 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 something beautiful will happen because you said yes. You may never know it happened, but it will, because you are here, because you care, because you let your wings open. So now, sleep. Let the weight of the world fall behind you. You are not small dot. You are the spark. You are the story. You are the butterfly, and you are flying still.